If you're someone who's interested in healing, manifestation, personal development, getting to know yourself, and learning how to create a life that feels like a true expression of you, then you're in the right place. This is my intro video on my YouTube channel. I'm going to keep things really casual. Just want to give you a little context of why I'm here, what I'm hoping to offer you in this space, and a little bit about me. I'm an actress turned trauma therapist. I was an actress most of my life since I was a child, and then I transitioned into becoming a therapist later in life. And I've been doing that for a few years now. And I think mostly because I also had my own personal struggles with a lot of mental illnesses and also loved ones suffering with their mental health. So I've been in therapy my whole life since I was a child, was always learning about healing and mental health. And I remember buying my first self help book at 11 years old, because that's how young we were when we were already questioning a lot of things. So I've been on this journey for a long time. And, even my first iteration of a career as an actress was still also a version of me wanting to connect to my humanity and to other people through art and through storytelling. So I'm fascinated by human behavior, why we act the way we act, what's up with life, and, how can we keep making best use of our time here, even though we might not really know what this all really is about. And a lot of it is very hard. We might as well still focus on trying to find the meaning and the beauty in everything. Now, the thing is, why YouTube? So I am on other social media platforms, right? IG, TikTok, all of that. And I've been really speaking to all of the topics that I love from the perspective of a therapist, right? Because that's my profession. That's where a lot of my expertise is in. That's where I guess a lot of my credibility is in as well, because obviously people will trust an expert in mental health and the brain and healing and growth. So I totally understand that. But then I find that I've been feeling a little trapped in other platforms about how I can really speak to these things from my perspective as a human, and also as I'm going through real time lessons, applying everything that I speak to, applying everything that I'm an expert of. I'm still a human first and foremost. And I really wanted to find a space where I could be a human first and then maybe a therapist, maybe an artist second. And so I'm hoping this is the space. We'll see. I still don't have an idea of what that means, because I've been, performing as a therapist for now a while in other places. So I also need to make sure I understand how to reconnect to myself publicly outside of my labels of therapist and even of my previous label of actress, and just how does Natalie think about these things? Because to be fair, I've learned so much by being a therapist and by working with hundreds of clients, and I work with really severe trauma. So I definitely have learned a lot, from my master's degrees and my certifications and all of that. But if I'm going to be real, I have learned the most by actually going through the fire myself and practicing what I talk about with clients. In fact, I think the reason I'm, a pretty dope therapist, I guess that's what my clients tell me. They seem to like working with me, is actually because I've struggled a lot in life. And I've had to be in therapy, but also I've had to experiment with a lot of other ways of healing and growing and getting unstuck from trauma and conditioning. So everything that I work with are things that I've experimented on myself. I'm never talking from like a textbook. I'm always talking from the fact that I literally am patient zero. I'm the first scientific study of all. It's me, and I try everything on myself. So I wanted to have a space where I can really talk about the experiments I'm making on myself when it comes to healing my nervous system Um, you will soon come to learn about me that I am a very, very big believer, and science is a pretty big believer, that is at the root of any sort of healing and growth and change. And by the way, if you found this place here, this channel, and you are feeling stuck in your healing or in your growth, I can guarantee you it means we have to go back to basics and regulate and repair your nervous system. Because from there, you'll be able to feel safe enough to actually do things to change your life and not only try new things, but actually just do all the things you've been avoiding because of trauma and fear and conditioning. And I say this to clients all the time. The way to heal is to literally do all the things you're scared of. And I don't mean like do all the kind of scary things like climb up a mountain or I don't know, even just go do something out in the world. It's actually the smaller scary things, but that are the biggest, like learning how to show up differently in a relationship, learning how to not follow an impulse that comes from a survival strategy, learning how to validate yourself when you're feeling a lot of pain and not just ignoring your emotions and being with the hard emotions, knowing how to take small risks in your daily life that afterwards will play out into, bigger risks that you want to take out in the world. And what I've noticed for myself, coming from someone who had severe depression and anxiety and had a really hard time just even wanting to be here, right? Since I was a kid, I had to take it tiny step by tiny step to learn how to feel safe and learn how to like life and then learn how to love life enough to now have energy and curiosity and inspiration to like now want to create a dope life. Because now I do. Now I'm here. Now I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be here, if we're going to be living this one life, now I want to feel really alive and I want to make sure my life feels really authentic to me. But for me to get here, I had to take baby steps first because I was coming from a lot of trauma and a lot of unhelpful conditioning. So, if you're someone who in the bottom of your heart, you want to feel better, you want to feel different, you do want things to change, or you're someone who's like doing all the things, you're meeting all your goals, but you don't feel good really. You still feel like anxiety is driving everything. You don't know how to even enjoy what you go after. That means you're stuck in some way. And if you're stuck, all that means is that there's a survival strategy, a subconscious belief, a part of you that's like capping you a little bit because that part is scared of the next chapter. Whatever that next chapter looks like for you, it could look very different from person to person. But you're kind of hitting a ceiling when it's really like you're feeling like everything's feeling the same and you either aren't managing to go after the things you want, or if you are going after the things you want, they're not they're not landing, they're not feeling that great. You don't know how to enjoy them. I often see those 2 points as the 2 points of stuckness that I encounter in a lot of clients and that I also was understanding in myself, right? Because I am someone who actually could take a lot of action in my life. I had very high functioning depression and high functioning anxiety. So I could take action, but it didn't matter because everything I took was from a place of self loathing. And so it was all a form of punishment, including my accomplishments. So then I would accomplish things like when I was an actress, I was finally on TV, achieving my biggest dream, and I hated myself. So, same, whether you achieve your goals or you don't achieve your goals, if there's some healing to be done underneath the surface, we want to make sure we do that. And that is how you actually manifest a life and an experience of yourself that feels good. That feels good, right? And like I said, life is hard. There will be hard moments. There will be things out of your control for sure. I can't tell you why that is. I don't know whoever created this. I don't think I don't know what the plan was, but I do know that us humans need to be able to feel a sense of agency and empowerment and some level of control over things, or else we kind of go crazy. which is what mental health issues are, right? We start feeling really helpless and out of control over our own experience. So we have to reclaim agency and control wherever we can find it. And usually the most accessible place to find it is in your relationship to yourself and to your life. You might not be able to control others, you might not be able to control life, although you might find that if you start learning how much influence you have over yourself and over your perception of experiences, you might start seeing that you have a lot more power than you thought you did, even over others or over circumstances. And that is so healing, right? Because especially if you've been through a lot of trauma or just conditioning of any kind, specifically if you've been part of any kind of group of person that was oppressed, right? You might have a lot of conditioning around how much agency and power you have. So it is super healing to start reclaiming agency. And even if all you can start with is reclaiming agency with your nervous system and your thoughts and how you reframe things to yourself, my experience, and I think this is where science speaks to this, and a lot of people who talk about manifestation speak to this, you then start seeing a lot of things around you change. And it can feel like it's magic. Well, science explains it as science. People who are more into the spirituality realm explain it as they explain it from a spirituality lens. In some ways, I don't really care. I think it's both, to be fair. I also think it's all the same, spirituality and science, to be fair. It's just us trying to explain things to ourselves in the way that makes sense. But one thing I know is that if you find some level of agency over yourself and over your narrative of your life and over how you connect to your past, to your present, and to your future, you do become very, very powerful, no matter what you've been through. And that I can say with certainty. I have clients who have gone through severe trauma. Myself, I have too. We see stories of people who have gone through a lot. How did they, with all that they've been through, get to change their lives in that way? It's because the human brain is that powerful that if we learn how to use it well and use it as a tool, it will stop controlling us and making us live in fear, and we'll be able to start using it to help us get what we want, which I think is what I'm really fascinated about. I know a lot of us are really into looking good, feeling good. And in my opinion, the best way to get there is to focus on what I call your hot girl brain and your hot girl nervous system. If you can get those on lock, if you can get a nervous system that knows how to respond appropriately to what's happening and not based on your triggers and your past experiences, if you know how to have a brain that you can be in conversation with, that you are the one who dictates, hey, that thought isn't helpful right now. This is a thought that's going to help me right now. That to me is a hot girl brain, right? It's having sovereignty, it's having that sense of empowerment over your little empire here. Because, and I mean, I guess I'm talking to the really growth minded women out there. If you're trying to build an empire out there, whether it is through work, through family, through hobbies, through, it doesn't even matter what your empire looks like, you got to pick it. Because again, this is about being authentically yourself. The thing is, you can't build an empire, you can't build a kingdom that you love if you don't know how to rule this kingdom. You know, you want to be a good queen to this kingdom. And then little by little, you'll understand what steps to take to then keep building your kingdom out there. Again, whatever that means to you, because what makes you feel empowered and authentic and fully expressed and alive in your life could look very different from someone else. So I'm not one to just advocate for it to be through your work or through your relationships or through anything. I would say that you want to feel fulfilled in all of the realms and feel like you have a really whole life and experience of yourself, whatever that means to you. So I'm hoping to be able to really dissect some topics that I love talking about here. I am a science girly. I do love to dissect our brain and our nervous system, But I also, like I said, I was an actress. I was an artist for most of my life since I was a child. So I do think that's really the foundation of who I am as a person. And I really like to approach the topic of healing, of living your most aligned life and making meaning and happiness as an art and as a science, because I think it's both. And I think it's good to be able to know how to approach it from both lens. I find that that's how you get it right. Or at least that's been my experience. And again, this is going to be a channel where I really want to share about my experience because I've been experimenting with this for a long time. I first started studying, again, I said it, my first self help book. You got it when I was 11. That's when I started getting into healing and personal development. And I remember I started yoga back then. I had a very severe mental health issue and I was very depressed. And I was already on Zoloft by the time I was 11. So I have been a seeker and someone who's been having to experiment a lot on herself for a really long time before most people. While my friends were having fun and playing, I was trying to be happy enough, to want to just do things. So I've been I've been my little guinea pig for a long time. I do have some lessons, some things that I wish I would have known sooner, some directions I went down on that I could have been more efficient about because they were kind of a waste of time the way I went about them. So I just want to talk about some of those lessons learned. And hopefully that way you don't waste as much time as I did. If you're interested in any of this, I want to make this all feel a lot more practical for people because I do think we're so overwhelmed, we're so busy, there's so much information out there that the more practical and digestible we can make this and not as convoluted, we're more likely to practice these things, whether it is taking care of yourself in the healing realm or how you go after your goals. I just think sometimes we either overcomplicate it. There's just like so much information out there about like the one right way. Or what also happens is that we're just consuming so much information and we're not actually practicing anything because we don't even know like what to practice on a given day. So I think just making it very accessible and digestible. I'm also someone who has always had severe anxiety and ADHD. So for me, I had to like break things down bite size so I could actually slowly implement them. And I'm going to tell you, I can't believe how far I've come in terms of my healing and my relationship to myself and my life. I have a lot of cool things that are part of my life. I have to say, my biggest accomplishment is my relationship to myself. It's that I am truly a really, really good parent to myself. I learned how to be there for myself in a way where I feel so safe with myself that life feels safer in return. And then I've been able to also make other relationships feel safer, and my relationship to my habits and to my career and my goals feel safer. But that's because of my relationship with myself. And that kind of accomplishment isn't as shiny as others, but I do want to make this channel be about this type of accomplishment. When you know that you are truly on your team and you understand what you want and that you have permission to want that, and you understand what your boundaries are, and you understand how to hold yourself through pain and how to validate yourself, and you understand how to connect with others and then how to create space when the connection is not useful or necessary. When you just really know your needs and your wants really intimately, and you know how to go after them little by little, it doesn't mean that you're going to get everything you want and need. It just means at least you know what they are and you're working towards them. It's a really, really beautiful place to be. It's the closest thing I've experienced in terms of unconditional love towards myself, but I'm sure that's also the work of a lifetime, right? And I have my days where I wake up tired and I wake up a little bit more anxious. The thing is, I know myself so well, I know my nervous system so well that I catch it sooner. I catch things sooner before I've spent a whole week being mean to myself and just saying shitty things to myself, right? Or I catch myself before I'm comparing myself to others. I catch myself before I'm doing anything that's really harmful for too long. And I think that's a cool place to be at. And it wasn't easy for me. It's not my natural state. I can tell you that. I had to like claw my way out of rock bottom. But since we're here, I want to be able to share what I've learned with you.